All right, good evening and welcome to Maseches Taanit Daf Vav 26. We're nearing the completion. I know there's a fast day next week. I don't know if it will be part of Maseches Taanit. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be the last day of Maseches Taanit. Wouldn't that be amazing? Anyway, I'm a little under the weather. Um, my wife is also more under the weather. So I was basically the whole day taking care of my kids. I'm telling you, to all those men out there who go to kollel every day and go to work every day and never have dealt with the kids on a long-term basis. It is mamash gehenim. It's terrible. It's very hard to take care of kids, young kids especially. I don't know how women do it. I was talking to my sister-in-law about it. I said maybe it's easier for women. She said it's a little easier for women. She said that I said that maybe women like their kids better than men, so they're more endearing to them. So they have more nachas. They enjoy being with their kids more. She didn't admit to that. I think it's true though. Um, it's very difficult to be with kids. I have three kids. The oldest is 3.5. So I wasn't a paradise day today. If I was able to get out now, it's 6:30. I have exactly half an hour to give the shir, then down Marav, and then come home to more servitude for the rest of the night. We'll see how it goes. Listen, I'm sure there's more men out there that are very well aware of what I'm talking about and have undergo it on a daily basis. There are probably some men out there. I know I had a friend, an older friend, who I started learning the Daf Yomi cycle with. His wife was pregnant. Um, she had to be in bed rest for 6 months. Um, that is absurd. He was taking care, I think, of two kids, two young kids, doing everything, cooking food, laundry, taking care of changing diapers, whatever you have to do, whoever knows who have young kids, taking care of them, meals for yourself, meals for your wife. It's not easy. I dabble in the kitchen a little bit, but I can't say I'm quite the chef. But I'll get there one day. All right. Let's start on the bottom of Chaf Ham with Bees, the last line. Ma'asav and Gazru Tainas Balud. There goes their Tainus. The Mishnah says a story. There goes their Tainus, and it rained, and they were able to break their fast. And they said Halal Gadol after Mincha. Then where's the name of Halal Mikara? Why did they say Halal Gadol to thank Hashem before they broke their fast? Abai Rabba Damar Tarbai Levishain Om Halal Ella top of Chavav Manalav Ella Al Nefesh Sveya Vakeres Malaya. You only say Halal when you're satiated. If you're not satiated, um, you're not feeling well, so you can't properly thank Hashem. And he's a true. Rav Papa Ikla Be Knishta Be Gover. Rav Papa came to the base Knesset and Abi Gover, a Gazer Tainus. He was Gozer Tainus. Apparently, they had a lack of Geshamim. Yardalham Geshamim, rain fell ad Chatzos, before Chatzos. Amr Halal, and we learned before Chatzos the rain falls, you can break your fast. But he said Halal before Chatzos. So you see, and they went and they ate and drank afterwards. So why didn't they eat on the Keres Malaya, Nefesh Sveya? Then where's the shiny B'nai Mechuzah, the Shlichi B'hu Shichris, in I guess this place, it says Mechuzah over here. I guess Abi Gover was a place in Mechuzah. Mechuzah is a big city in Bavel, in Iraq. They had a lot of shichras. When they would eat, they would drink a lot. They had a lot of bottles of Glenlivet, Glenfiddich. Which is your preference, Glenlivet or Glenfiddich? What's the difference between the two? There's a big difference. Glenfiddich is a lot more expensive. Anyway, they used to drink a lot when they ate. We're going to see in the Gemara today. People used to drink a lot during the main meal of the day, which is during Mincha, the afternoon. So therefore, since they knew they were going to eat and drink a lot, they're intoxicated, they're going to probably fall asleep and not say Al Gadol. He said to say it's better to say it before it. Hadron Allah, say your tiniest Elu. We have finished the third parak of Maseches Taanit. We have one parak left to go. This is unbelievable. 3/4 of Maseches Taanit is over. It feels like you're on a fast day and 3/4 of the day is over and you're coming back on Yom Kippur from Mincha and you have to have Mafter Yonah. Mafter Yonah is pretty interesting. So that takes a little bit. Then the hard part is the slichos and the ila. That's the hardest part. Getting to the close, the gemar. That's very hard. All right, b'shlosha prakim b'shana kohanim nosin es kapeim. Arba pamim v'yom. 4 times a year, 3 times a year, the kohanim do nesias kapayim 4 times in one day. B'shachris musav mincha v'nilas yarim. Right, on days where you have shachris musav mincha and ne'ilah. The tani also amados yom kippurim. The 3 days are tanis. Probably the tiniest we're talking about here in this Masechta for Geshamim, Mamados. We'll see Mamados are. Yom Kippurim, Yom Kippur, Elohein Mamados. What are the Mamados? The Fish Nemar, Sabbath Bnei Yisrael is Karbani Lachmi. It says you should command Klal Yisrael to bring the Karban Tamid, Karbani Lachmi. It's Lechem of Hashem, eats in the morning and at night. It says Bnei Yisrael, the whole Klal Yisrael. How is whole Klal Yisrael supposed to come? It's impossible to fit all of Klal Yisrael in the base of Mikdash. Even the Ezra's Nashim. He's not there. He can't be there. Hiskinu Nevi'im Rishonim Asarim Ba'arba Mishmaros. I'll call Mishmar Mishmar. They divided Klal Yisrael into 24 groups. 24 groups. Each group had a lot of Kohanim, a lot of Leviim, and a lot of Yisraelim. I'll call Mishra Yamamid B'Yushalayim Shal Kohanim Shal Leviim Shal Yisraelim. For each Mishmar, there was a Maimid. The Maimid was either only Yisraelim or also some of the Kohanim, some of the Leviim, and all the Yisraelim, or some of the Yisraelim. Some of the Yisraelim went up to the base of Mikdash. Some stayed back in the respective towns where they were, in Davin, in the Shul. He gives them on a Mishmar Lalos Kohanim Leviim Olim Yishalayim Yisrael Shbos Mishmar Wisconsin Areim. When the time for the Mishmar came, approximately twice a year, so the Kohanim and Levim will go up to the base of Mikdash to serve in the base of Mikdash. They should be omid al the Korban Tamid. And the Yisraelim, there were some Yisraelim that went up, like we said before. Levim, they went up, but Yisraelim went up. But most of the Yisraelim would stay in the shul and they would gather together in the shuls with Korban Ma'aseh Bereshis, and they would read Parshas Bereshis about the creation of the world, how important rain is, like the creation of the world. We're going to skip the parentheses. It says here they used to fast on these days. You don't have the parentheses. That means you don't have to fast during that day. So normally I was schooled in yeshiva that brackets you read, parentheses you don't read, which is perfect over here. Even if the Mamodos go back to the way it was in Beis Hamikdash, you don't have to fast because it's in parentheses. Thank whoever put in parentheses. The first day, Sunday, they would read the beginning of Bereshis, and they would read the second part, Vayirakia. B'sheni Yirakia v'kavo mayim. Now they had to have a number of psukim at least to make 3 aliyahs, so therefore they would include that day and part of the next day. B'sheni Yirakia v'kavo mayim. The Yikira and the water get together. B'shlishi Yikavo mayim v'hima oros. On Tuesday you'd read also v'hima oros, which is really Wednesday. But Revi'ah Yehuma oros v'yishrotu hamayim. B'chamishi Yishrotu hamayim Tozei Aretz. On the 5th day, Yishrotu hamayim is talking about the creatures in the water. Tozei Aretz, that's talking about already Behemoths, which is the 6th day. Bashishi Tozei Aretz, you include the 6th day. Vayichulu hashamayim, and they would read also part of the Shabbos of creation. Parsha Gdola Koran Al Sabishnayim Aktana Biyachid. These, like we said, there's 2 paragraphs. So the longer paragraph you divide into 2 aliyahs. The shorter one would be the 3rd aliyah. B'shachris Musaf Mincha Niknasin V'Korin Alpian. Kikorin as Shema. What does Rashi say over here? I'm a little confused over here. I prepared a little earlier, so what does it say over here? Okay, so I have to put a comma, according to the art scroll. B'shachris v'musaf. That's what the practice they do. They read from the Torah. Mincha, they would read these verses from the Torah, but they wouldn't read it from the actual Torah scroll. They just read it like they read Kriya Shema from a siddur. Erev Shabbos and Mincha lo yinechnasim they covered a Shabbos. On Erev Shabbos, they didn't go in. They didn't go the shuls because of covered Shabbos. Kol yom sheyesh bo halal, ein bo maimid b'shachris. Any day there was halal, you say halal. So there was no maimid. There was no these gathering together and reading Parshat Bereshis during Shachris. Korban Musaf, if there was a Korban Musaf on that day, Ein Ben Ne'ilah. There was no Maimid by Ne'ilah, by Tfilas Ne'ilah. Korban Eitzim, Ein Ben Mincha. We'll see what Korban Eitzim is. Special days where, when they were older from Bavel to build the second base of Mikdash, certain families donated wood to the base of Mikdash, so they made it into a Yom Tov. So for those families, they wouldn't say the Maimid b'mincha. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. That's according to Rabbi Akiva. Amar lo ben Azim. Ben Azim said, Kachai Rabbi Shua Shona, Korban Musaf ein b'mincha, Korban Eitzim ein b'ne'ilah. He said that if the Korban Musaf, there's no Maimid b'mincha, and Korban Eitzim, there's no Maimid b'ne'ilah. The opposite of Rabbi Akiva said, Chazar Rabbi Akiva li'ol Shona ben Azim. Eventually, Rabbi Akiva agreed with Ben Azai. Is man atzei kohanim ba'am? What are the times of atzei kohanim? What are those dates where they donated the extra wood, firewood, to the base of Mikdash when it had no firewood, when they're just getting started at the second base of Mikdash? Tisha, there's 9 days. Be'echa b'Nisan, the first day of Nisan, b'nei Arach ben Yehuda, from the family of Arach, from the tribe of Yehuda. Be'eshem b'Tammuz, the 20th day of Tammuz, b'nei David ben Yehuda. David, the family of David, or anonymous David ben Yehuda, from the tribe of Yehuda. Chamisha b'Av, b'nei Parosh ben Yehuda. 5th day of Av, it was donated by Parosh, the tribe of Yehuda. B'Shiva bo b'nei Yonadav ben Rechev, b'nei Yonadav, the son of Rechev. It doesn't say what tribe he's from. B'Asara bo, the 10th day of Av, b'nei Sana ben Binyamin, from Sana, the son of Binyamin, from the tribe of Binyamin. B'Chamish Asar bo b'nei Zuta ben Yehuda, from b'nei Zuta, the 15th day of the tribe of Yehuda. Those days, also the Kohanim and the Leviim would also celebrate because they were instrumental in bringing the karbanos. Anyone who was from one of these families, but he didn't know which one he was from, they would join Bnei Zuta, Bnei Gonvi, Eli, Bnei Gonvi, Eli, Bnei Kote Xios. Also, Gonvi, Eli. What is this exactly? Family of pestle smugglers and family of fig cutters. I think the Gemara is going to explain this. Rashi, the note in the article says there's actually one family. We'll learn about this on Daf 28a. For those people who don't know Hebrew Roman numerals. Be'esrim bo b'nei Pachas Pchas Moav ben Yehuda, the 20th day of, where are we in Av, right? The 20th day of Av, Pachas Moav ben Yehuda, from the tribe of Yehuda. Be'esrim be'Elul, the 20th day of Elul, b'nei Adin ben Yehuda, b'nei Adin, from the family of Adin of the tribe of Yehuda. Be'echa b'Teves, first day of Teves, shabo b'nei Parosh Shnia. It was actually the same family that was already mentioned. One of the families that was mentioned, they didn't have another donor, so Bnei Parash stepped up again and they donated a second time. So they celebrate actually 2 days of Zman Atzei Kohanim. Be'echa b'Teves lo haya bo maimid shaya bo halal v'kar musav v'kar b'neitzim. We just had Echa b'Teves. It's Rosh Chodesh Teves, falls out during Chanukah. So during Chanukah, there's no halal. There's halal. There's a Kohen Musaf, because it's Rosh Chodesh. And there's Korban Eitzim, because we just said Bnei Parosh donated Eitzim on Rosh Chodesh Teves, so therefore that canceled all the Maimid. There's no Maimid during that day, unique to that day. Chamisha Zvarim Iru Es Avuteinu B'Shivasar B'Tammuz. 5 terrible things happened to Klal Yisrael on Shivasar B'Tammuz, which she commemorated as a fast day. L'chamisha b'Tisha B'Av, and 5 terrible things on Tisha B'Av. B'Shivasar B'Tammuz. What are the 5 things Shivasar B'Tammuz? Top of Chavav and Beis Nishabru Luchos. Moshe threw down the Luchos and our Sinai. Butal Tamid, the Tamid, when the Romans were conquering Yerushalayim, they didn't have animals anymore to mark the Korban Tamid. The Hufka, the year that the walls of Yerushalayim were breached on the 17th before it was conquered by the Romans. On the 17th of Tammuz, the Sarah of Afu Stamlis is a Torah. Afu Stamlis was someone from Greek, I think. Sarah Afu Stamlis is a Torah. Who's Afu Stamlis? A Greek general. All right, he was a Greek general. He burned the Torah. Happened to be on Shivasar B'Tammuz. V'himid Tzelem B'Heichal. Also, it was the time when I guess this guy Apostle Thomas also that day He burned the Torah and he put an idol in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Heichal. The Tisha B'Av, Nigzar al Voseinu Shalei Kanzel. What are the five things about Tisha B'Av that were terrible? Nigzar al Voseinu Shalei Kanzel La'aretz. There was a Gzeira of the Meraglim that Klal Yisrael shouldn't go. Hashem said on that day they shouldn't go into Eretz Yisrael for another 40 years. V'charav Habayis B'Rishona V'Shniya. Basically, it was destroyed. It's amazing that it was destroyed the same day. The first base of Mikdash and the second base of Mikdash. Shkacha Pratis, all right? Unbelievable. Look at the Beitar, and Beitar was captured. Beitar was a big city that remained after the Churban of Ayas Hasheni. It wasn't captured for another 50-something years, but when it was captured, it was a big city, and it was massacred, the entire city, so it was a terrible day. It happened on Tisha B'Av. The city was plowed. After the Romans conquered, burned the Beis HaMikdash down, they plowed over the ruins of the Beis HaMikdash, making it into a field to plant there on Tisha B'Av. When Av comes in, we don't not have simcha. We have less simcha than we usually do. Shabbos Shechal Tisha B'Av Lios B'Socha. The week Tisha B'Av falls during it. Asher M'Lasaper L'Chabes. You can't get a haircut. You can't do laundry. V'Chamisha Mutar M'Nikot Shabbos. Let's say it fell on Shabbos. So on Thursday you could, because you have to get ready for Shabbos. Erev Tisha B'Av Lo Yichal Adam Shnei Tavshilin. If you're wondering about the 9 days, there really is no makor for the 9 days in the Gemara. In fact, Sfardim practice the halacha like it says in the Mishnah. Shua Shachal Bo Tishba. That's the Ikar halacha. 9 days is not the real halacha. I think it's just an extension of Mishnah Chasav Matim B'Simcha. They extended the prohibitions of the Shua Shachal Bo to the 9 days. Okay, we discussed it at a different time. Ask your local Haredi rabbi, not Orthodox rabbi, Haredi rabbi. Ask your local Haredi rabbi. Erev Tisha B'Av L'Yichal Adam Shnei Tavshilin. Erev Tisha B'Av, there's an Isser. This is talking about your Suda Mafseka. It's the last Suda before you start fasting. You shouldn't eat 2 cooked foods. You can only eat 1 cooked food. Additionally, you can't eat meat or drink wine. He says these restrictions don't really apply. All you have to do is just change. If you're having a huge meal, have a little less. That's his opinion. Yehuda says an additional thing. He says you have to overturn the beds also on Erev Tisha B'Av. The Chacham didn't agree with him. Amar Hashem Gamliel Yom Tov Yisrael Chamish Sar Ba'av Kippurim. Getting back to great Yom Tovim, good days. Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur were great days for Klal Yisrael. Shem Benos Yishalayim Yosef L'Chlilav and Shulin. The daughters of Yerushalayim, the singles that they weren't married, they used to go out in white dresses. I don't know, a white collar dress, a wedding gown. Shulin, they were borrowed, right? When you get a wedding gown, you don't buy your own wedding gown. You don't have your tailored, bespoke tailoring for your own wedding gown. You see over here, the Gemara says, Shulin, you borrow it. You take a rented one, right? All those people don't make us takanas for the wedding. So here's your source. It says, Shulin, you borrow it. You don't have to rent it. You just borrow it. You're supposed to borrow it. What's good? You for free. You don't have to pay $10,000 for a wedding gown. Like you said, there's a reason, because if everyone had to buy their own, not everyone can afford to buy their own. Since we're not sure how observant all the people were, so the previous Kala was wearing the dress, she might have become a nido while she was wearing it in case she was matami the begadim. Therefore, all the begadim needed tvila. They would go out. This is on Yom Kippur. It's an amazing thing, amazing Gemara. I'm just wondering how this fits in with the way Yom Kippur is practiced nowadays, where you have about 15 minutes between Musaf and Mincha. I don't know when this Gemara applies, when the girls go out and meet the Bachrim. I don't know to figure it out how it applies. Apparently, they didn't daven so long back then. Cholos Bekrom, and they danced. The girls would dance in front of the men. Can you believe this? What would the Rabbanim say nowadays? Umayu omros. What would they say to attract the men that want to marry them? Bokar sanai necha re'eh ma'ata bor lecha al titin einecha benoi tin einecha b'mishpacha. The Gemara is going to explain exactly. There were three groups. One group, the beautiful girls would say, "Look how beautiful we are. Take us based on our beauty." The second group would say, "Don't look at the beauty. Look at the yichus. Come from an important family, a distinguished family with many billionaires or many rabbanim." Um, Sheker, Achein Vehevel, Yof Isher Asasham Hitis Halal. That's really the claim of the third group who have neither yichus nor the looks. They say looks are not important. What's only important is Yiras Hashem. Meaning, if you're beautiful, you have no Yiras Hashem, and if you have yichus, you have no Yiras Hashem. Only the people. All right. Hitis Halal. Omer Tnu Lami Priya Dev Halu B'Sharim Maaseh. Give her from the fruits of her hands and praise her. Talks about the daughters of Sion going out to greet Shlomo HaMelech. So Arshkel says it refers, I think Rashi also says it refers to Melech Shalom Shalom. Rashi says it refers to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the Pasuk Pshat is talking about Shlomo. Shlomo had 1,000 wives, so they went out to greet Shlomo. The day of his wedding and the day when he was happy. 2 different days. What are those days? Yom Chasunas is a Matan Torah. So allegorically, we'll say it's referring to the day of Har Sinai. Yom Simchas Libo is a Binyan Beis Hamikdash Sheibanim Meira V'Yameinu. If we're learning that it's talking about Shlomo HaMelech, the Mishnah really doesn't make so much sense, right? Is that Matan Torah? Shlomo HaMelech was not alive during Matan Torah. Binyan Beis Hamikdash you could fit into Shlomo. It was built in his days. So those days he acquired a lot of wives. Matan Torah doesn't have to mean Har Sinai. Matan Torah can mean that he taught Torah to Klal Yisrael. So therefore we could fit it back in. This is Imam Ben Sion over here, a Nupshan in the Mishnah. We're talking about Shlomo HaMelech who had 1,000 wives. I think he had 300 wives and 700 pilagshos or something like that. So when did he acquire those wives? When did the database and make sure it was built? And the day where he taught them Torah. All right, that's my pshat. 3 times a year the Kohanim would do duchening. Taanit Musaf said there are 3 times a year where 4 times they do Nesias Kapayim. That wouldn't make sense on Tanios for Geshamim and Mamados. There was no Musaf, so there was only 3 davenings. Kohanim Nosidas Kapayim, Kols Mashmas Baal. They would 3 times a year, whenever they daven, the Kohanim would do Nesias Kapayim. Yishman Arbapam. There's one time, namely Yom Kippur, where they would do it 4 times. But Yom B'Shachas, Musaf, Mincha, Manilas Sharim. On Yom Kippur, they do it 4 times. So the 4 tefillas of Yom Kippur. But Elohim Shlosh Prakim, one of those 3 times, where every time they daven, they do Nesias Kapayim. Tanios, Mamados, and Makipurim. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Ravu, Azu Divrei Meir. The above, the shita of our Mishnah follows Rav Meir. He says during Yom Kippur and Mamados and Tanios, there was no Nesias Kapayim by Mincha and Ila. Man Chachamim. So which Tana is the Chacham shita? Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbi Yehuda, the Sanya Shachas, and Musaf Mincha and Ila, Kulang Yesh Ben Nesias Kapayim. Give Rav Meir. The Bryce says Rav Meir holds all the time. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shachas and Musaf Yesh Ben Nesias Kapayim. Mincha and Ila, Ein Ben Nesias Kapayim. See, that's the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer Neila Yesh Ba Nesias Kapayim Mincha Ein Ba Nesias Kapayim. There's a third sheet that he says Neila there was Nesias Kapayim Mincha there wasn't. Might come after you. What's the explanation of this machlokas? Rameir Sarva Kol Yom Taima Ma'ilo Parsi Kohani Yad Parsi Kohani Yadayim. He says what's the reason every day we would do it at Shachris we do Nesias Kapayim and Musaf we don't do it at Mincha. Why not at Mincha? Mincha. So Mishum Shechras people it was very common to have the big meal during Mincha and you have like Glenn Levitt or Glenn Fittich. Johnny Walker, Jim Beam, Chivas Regal, Crown Royal, the list goes on and on. Or they had beer. Maybe they just had a lot of beer. A lot of beer. A lot of Heineken beer. What is the best beer? That's the question. I'm trying to. I'm not an alcoholic, but I like to have a beer once in a while. What is the best beer there is on the market? It's really hard to figure out. When I was living in America, I really like Coors Light. They don't really have it available in Israel, but it's a very light beer. I don't know. I think personally, Stella Artois is the best beer. There is. It's a beer that's very commonly sold here in Israel. I think also America. It's the third oldest beer in the world, and definitely the most famous beer, the oldest, most famous beer in the world. It was originated in 1366. For all of you asking, Stella Artois. It's a Belgian beer. Belgians make good beer, make good chocolate, they make good waffles, and they have the capital of the EU. The European Union is settled in Brussels. For all those people who care about that, where's the other place where the EU convenes? There's two places. There's Brussels, and then there's a place in France. A lot of Jews there, actually. Strasbourg, France is the other place. The EU convenes alternating locations between Brussels and Strasbourg. For those of you who care or think it's interesting to know that, it's good information to know. Anyway, they drank a lot. They had a lot of Stella Artois. Ha'idna Lake Shukras. He said nowadays people don't drink so much. It used to be they like Stella Artois, right? But nowadays no one drinks anymore. It's not as uncouth to drink. It's better to vape. I don't know. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, Shachas of Musav, the Chol Yom or Loshchiach Shechrach, Lagazu Rabbanan. Yehuda has said, Shachas of Musav, there's not, people don't get drunk, they didn't eat the meal yet. They were in Gozer. Mincha Neila, the Chol Yom, Shchicha Shechrach, Gazu Rabbanan. So therefore, even though on Neila, on Yom Kippur, and Taanit and mothers are fasting, or maybe fasting on mothers, but they weren't having, it was Xera because of the rest of the days, so therefore, just to strengthen the rest of the days where they didn't fast. So therefore, they said also on those days, you don't do Nesilas Kapayim. Mincha Yila the Chal Yoma Shchicha Shechas Gazer Rabbanim. Yossi Sarah Mincha the Isa B'Chal Yoma Gazer Rabbanim. Mincha, which is a tefillah you daven every day, they were gozer. Yila the Leisa B'Chal Yoma Lo Gazer Rabbanim. It's not a common tefillah, so they weren't gozer on the. They didn't Nesilas Kapayim at Nila. Amar Yehuda Amar Rav Allah Chakrei Meir says Allah follows Rei Meir. Yochanan Amar Nagu Amkrei Meir says people took upon themselves to follow Rei Meir. Rav Amar Minag Rei Meir says the Minag follows Rei Meir. What's the difference between the three Lashonos? Mandam halacha Rei Meir darshin l'pirka. That means we would tell everybody publicly that's the halacha. Follow Rei Meir. Mandam minag midrash l'rashina uruye morin. If the last opinion said it's a minag, it's an actual custom. So we don't go public and say it. But if people rabbis ask privately, that's the correct halacha. Mandam nagu uruye the morina v'avid lama adrinan le. Nagu means that people took upon themselves. That's not really the right halacha. But b'diavad, we say that if they did it like that, we don't tell them to go back and redo it. Rav Nachman argues, says Allah Rav Yossi, v'halacha Rav Yossi, Rav Paskin, Allah Rav Yossi, that in Ne'ilah you do Nesilas Kapayim, not a mincha. The Gemara says, "In the my time, parts of Kani Yadayim mincha Tanis." But we know the minhag is, if you look in the shuls, on a Tanis you do Nesilas Kapayim mincha. Came them some shkilas chama like a kaparis and Nesilas Nila damya. Usually on a Tanis you daven mincha very late, right before shkilas chama. So therefore it's like Ne'ilah, right? Cool. So therefore, essentially the halacha is like a mayor anyway. Anyway, it comes out. The whole reason is because normal day in mincha you have shikra, so it's you can't do nesilas kapayim not immediately. Where do we know this from? Amar Yishuv ben Levi Mishum Gar Kapara Lama Isbecham Parshas Kohen Mevarach LaParshas Nazir. That's in the Torah, Birkas Kohanim, and then it says Parshas Nazir next to it. Lama Ma Nazir also be yain. Af Kohen Mevarach also be yain. Just like a Nazir can't drink wine, a Kohen doing nesilas kapayim can't drink wine, can't be intoxicated. Yain Maskul Avu with Rabbi Zeir. Amar La Oshaya Bar Zavdi Ma Nazir also bechar. Af Kohen Mevarach also bechar. There's another halacha by Nazir. He can't eat the seed of a grape. So also, Kohen Mevarach also shouldn't be able to eat the seed of a grape. No, that's not true. Amr Yitzchak Amar Kra, the Shar Sil Varach B'Shvo. We have another pasuk. It says to serve Hashem, to do the avodah Beis Hamikdash Varach B'Shvo, and to do Nesilas Kapayim. Ma Misharis Mother B'Charza. It's like there's no injunction against Misharis serving, bring a korban, a Kohen bring a korban. It's allowed to eat a grape seed. Af Kohen Mevarach Mother B'Charza. From the Hekesh the pasuk, so to do Nesilas Kapayim, you're allowed to eat a grape seed. So the Gemara continues in Chavzayim and all at the top. Ima Misharis Balmum Lo. Af Kohen Mevarach Balmum Lo. Once you're making the hekesh, so just like we know, Kohen is doing the avoda can't be a balmum, so therefore Nesilas Kapayim you also can't be a balmum. That's not true. We know he can be a balmum. The Gemara says Hayiskash leNazir. He's already connected with Nazir. Nazir, he could be a Nazir even though you're a balmum. My chaz is the maksh lekula akish lechumra. Why are you going lekula? Makish lechumra. Asmach taninu mirabbanan lekula. These drushes are not real drushes. They're only asmach support from a pasuk, it's the Rabbanan, and therefore go lakula in life. It'll be good for you.